dude, I can't thank you enough. And I recently decided to rebrand my podcast, and I wanted to have you on as the inaugural guest. The new podcast.
I wonder what that's about, because this is the third podcast I've had in a row where somebody was rebranding and I was the first guest as the new intro to it.
Man, I think
this is the third day in a row.
Third day in a row. I think that says something, man. You know, I think our stories, you know, they seem to come and go cyclically, right? That all of a sudden they bring you back to what the root of everything was. And so I've ran So now for the last 3 years, and it's been really conversation driven. It's been able to allow me to talk to lots of people about a variety of things. And I'm really feeling more called to doing something more poignant. And so as I'm working with people and trying to help people see this ability to take accountability in their own life and have that self-awareness switch of being able to say, like, holy shit, I'm the one in control. Why am I doing things I don't want to do? Why am I not living a way I love? And so the rebrand is not dead yet. And it's about that moment in people's lives when that snap occurs for the first time. And then you realize, like, holy shit, I can do anything I want. And then there's the realization that time is ticking.
Yeah.
And
if time is your God.
If time is that's an interesting one. Do I consider it? Because I find time to be one of those things is one of the only scarce resources I deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And which is what makes it really valuable, is how I choose to spend it and where my intention is and what I do with it. I've never looked at it as my God, but now that's something I'd like to think more about.
Yeah, because there's like time and energy. And then when you're like, what I'd like to do with it, but there's energy in the allotted time. That's why somebody can do 10 times more in the allotted time, but then they get 10 times the value. So it's like time for me is time really, because like it's like if someone said, okay, it's 12 o'clock, but if in the space of the infinite, everything becomes possible.
Sure.
And so I start delving into that, because I was like, oh, you know what? My life is over. 25, it hasn't happened. 35, it happened. And then it popped off at 37. And I was like, oh, I was putting all that pressure on my time. But then once I actually started taking the same energy and putting it on my craft and taking the energy and putting it in things that I love, it's almost like time was obsolete because I didn't age. And I was like, oh, interesting. So it's different ways. So there's like 20 different ways to like go to a specific direction.
Yeah. And I mean, what you're describing with time, like, I don't know that I think our age, you know, the time accrued that we have in life sets the experiences, and that kind of gets us further into the wisdom thing, if we will, if we're continuing to look for deeper experiences that do change us. And I know I've been listening and reading a lot of your stuff, and this change your mindset, change your life. And I would love to hear about that.
Well, when I was a little kid, I always wanted to be a superhero. I wanted to have abs like an action figure and save and change lives all over the world. I didn't know how I was going to do that, but that was a dream of mine. And I would talk about it all the time, as did all little kids. I want to be the president. I want to be a rapper. I want to be a country singer. I want to be an Olympian. You know, they all have those. 99% of them leave that for whatever reason. And I've never, ever in my life, I'm sure there are, but I've never heard a 5-year-old say, you know what? I want to work a 9-to-5 job out of security and fear to get paid less than my value. I've never heard that. So at some point, the bigness of that belief was abandoned, which I think is the first layer of abandonment. Then you go on to attract other layers of abandonment called, you thought your first layer was mom and dad and things like that, but it's like, typically when you take it back to the root, it's the little kid that abandoned the things that he loved, or she loved.
Little by little, huh?
Say it again.
Just little by little, you slowly say, well, I can't do that.
Little by little. And you know, I shared that to just just correspond to your question, because my whole life I would always ask, why does all these bad things keep happening to me? Why is all this? And I'm going through, and I made it big in modeling, and then I fell. And I made it big in music, and then I fell. And I made it big in track, and then I fell. And then I made it big. And then all of a sudden, I got on a personal development, like I became a personal development junkie, because I didn't realize that your mind, whatever your mind is set on, that's why the result is what it is. But I didn't know that until I started reading books and studying great people who are doing great things in the world, and listening to audiobooks, listening to podcasts. I'm like, man. Then I heard John C. Maxwell say, successful people are willing to do the things that unsuccessful people won't do. And I looked at my life and I'm like, dang, I've actually been following a lot of a bunch of unsuccessful people's advice. What would it be like if I start studying people that I perceive to be successful, that have the life that I actually want?
It took on that, right? It took me a long time. It wasn't until really a few years ago that I started, let's say, reading or diving into self-help when I was hurt and trying to fight my way through whatever that identity change end of chapter was. And prior to that, I would have really looked at all of that stuff as shitty, like self-help stuff. It's so fucking lame. Yep. And I don't even know where that feeling got rooted from, other than by saying I'm interested in that, it means my shit's not okay. Yeah. And you have to admit that first. And I understand that being such a thing that's built into us naturally, to admit where your fuck ups are, or your weak spots, or something that, I should probably look at that.
Yeah. But it's not like, we're not taught that. We don't grow up with books like that. Most of our parents weren't like that. And how are we supposed to know? And you can't change what you're not aware of. So you can get these results, and then you can lose it because you're not aware of the system that you're being programmed by. You don't change the person, you change the system changes the person. So if you're unsure on what you're being programmed, that this is where this whole mindset shift came from. And people are like, no, there's more than that. There's the soul and there's the heart, and that's more than just the mind. I was like, you do realize you have like brain cells in your gut, right? Like if I can get like really, really like smart and dorky for a minute, like you literally have brain cells in your gut. That's why they say you are what you eat, because your brain is getting, and it's sending those motor neurons up there, and you're like, oh my God, I'm so. When I started to surround myself around different kind of people who are doing different things that I wasn't used to, I became the sum total of the environment that I hung around the most. And that was health and wellness. That was personal growth. That was transformation. That was book readers. There's people making an impact in the world. I did not grow up with those caliber of people. So I didn't know any better. So community is a form of language. So by me just immersing myself in the culture, I started learning the language of the culture, speaking, thinking, reading, writing, and business stuff. And I stayed around that culture. So my mindset just started changing little by little by little by little by little. And I connect the dots looking backwards. I'm like, oh my God, I've been evolving this whole time. Or I was surrounded by an environment that allowed me to amplify the results that I wanted, moving in a specific direction. And that's where the whole change your mindset, change your life came from.
You said, there's, you said that it is change your mindset, and people feel like, oh, there is the soul, there is this other part. Do you think part of that is fear of still not being able to take the full accountability that you can actually do it, that there is some magical, ethereal thing that is holding between me and whatever my idea of success is?
Yeah, whether you're aware of it or not. But I can tell you this, the more you study the the identity, the authentic identity of nature, the more you'll realize how that's why they call it human nature. It's like our twins. So the mind, body, and soul is like fruit. It's like fruit, tree, roots. They're all connected. So whatever the health of the seed determines the growth of the tree and the fruit that it produces. So whatever the health of, you know what I'm saying? Like your traumas or whatever it is, whatever the health of the seed of your childhood domestication determines the growth of your life and the result that it produces. It's all connected.
So when would you say you started getting around people like that?
2011.
Okay, so 2011.
Yeah, so I was in the lowest point of my life, tried to take my life twice, $250,000 in debt. And, you know, I always had a knack for personal growth. I had like 125 videos out from my living in my storage unit. I just always felt called to share this information, even though my life didn't look like it. However, I was still living in my car for 2.5 years. My girlfriend had just broken up with me, and I didn't even have a relationship with my daughter. So there was, when I talk about the rain, it rains, it pours, you know, at the end of the school year where you got like 9 tests simultaneously. Well, this was like, I'm brushing up the get between where I am now and my next level. And I got 9 different tests testing me to see if I'm ready to go to the next level. And those were all of those traumatic things that I was going through. So one day, August 2011, 3:43, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was raining. My window was busted out because somebody had just broken into my car the night before. And I had Scotch tape and a shirt right there. I'm on La Brea and Hollywood at the Cantaloupe Mail and More parking lot where I used to sleep in my car. And finally, I just said, okay, I'm tired of fighting. I don't want to fight anymore. I want to be healthy. I want to be happy. I want to be surrounded by nothing but positive people. I just want to inspire people. And I just want to make a bunch of money, but I want the money to represent something that I passionately believe in that I would do for free. And to close this out, a week later, I'm at the gas station and a homeless guy, I think it was an angel, homeless guy comes up to me asking me for money. And I said, you have more money than me. And he said, change your mindset, change your life. The homeless guy. That's the name of my company. That's the philosophy that I live by. That's the name of my #1 best-selling book, Change Your Mindset, Change Your Life. And it was something about those words that created a conscious interrupt that made me feel like my whole life was a lie. And then I just said, so if my mind is set on something, then that's why the result is what it is. So if I do different with the same circumstance, my life will change. So I just started training myself to do the opposite. Normally I use gel soap, so I'm going to use bar soap. Change your mindset, change your life. Normally I take the escalators, change your mindset, change your life. So I'm going to take the stairs. Well, an object in motion stays in motion. So I had already built up a new momentum pathway in my life unconsciously. I didn't know what was happening. So when big things that would normally be hard for me to choose came up, I had already had the forward momentum of doing the opposite.
Right, already choosing a bunch of small, hard things that don't really have any risk, right, other than I chose to do it.
Yes.
And man, I think that momentum, that doing those little things every day, whether that's choosing to even get up earlier or even take a minute to write in a journal, like having that set of discipline that I'm doing this because I agree it's important. And it doesn't have to mean anything more than that.
Yeah.
That's such a powerful thing. And then, because, I'm fortunate enough to know more of your story, to hear that this was the drop moment in 2011, right? That you decided now to change your mind, change your life, and start being around these other people who are living in a way that you'd like to live.
Absolutely.
Be around that example. You've had some other setbacks that are a little unfucking believable, man. Like, your story with being imprisoned and
Yeah.
arrest records and all these things that should have absolutely been a definite barrier to you not getting to where you are.
Yeah.
I would love to hear all of it.
Okay, so I'm gonna give somebody credit. I'm gonna give my mom credit because I don't give her enough credit when I come on these podcasts. I've done like 1,000, well, 500. Um, my mom never bought me the things that I wanted. She said, when you can make your own money, you can buy whatever you want. So it forced me to learn how to be really creative and always figure out a way to make money. And that built a muscle inside of me that does not quit until I get what I want. And if you can understand how ABCs works, like even as you and I speak, even as the listeners are listening, the system of ABCs is still running. But you do something for long enough, it starts evolving into words, sentences, paragraphs, books, other languages, melody, riding a bike, doing a triathlon. All of that comes with the pattern of understanding ABCs. So you can see how that works. I had built a new language inside of myself when my mom said, when you can make your own money, called figure it out and do not stop until you figure it out. You might be stronger than me. You might be smarter than me. You might have way more money than me. But let me tell you something. When I want something, I don't know another human on the face of this planet personally that is as relentless and peaceful as I am. There's relentless people.
That's a key. That's a key part.
There's relentless people, but they're not peaceful. Their soul ain't right.
No, they're
There's
not happy.
something in there that's not right, so they're overcompensating. As relentless, like a hungry dog on a bone, and as peaceful and graceful as my channel, as I am. That's what I wanted, though. I wanted that. So I will not stop, and I will just keep evolving. My wife says, 100 million, she says, I don't want to do what I had to do to get here. And she makes $500,000 a year.
Yeah.
And we both have really great businesses. And she's like, I don't want to have to do what I did as a strong woman. She's like, baby, will you take care of me? Oh my goodness. I grew a new rocket booster. So I will stop at nothing to maintain peace, tranquility, and relentlessness all in the same container and create the kind of life that is so prevalent to the highest of highs that my wife feels so safe in her nervous system. And she's the most extraordinary mom. She wants to bake her own bread. She wants to plant. She's already did the business stuff. She's like, I don't want to do that anymore. She's like, I get tired. I don't get tired.
Right.
So I'll take it off easily. So I say all of that because my mother instilled that inside of me. Some people are just learning it now. But, you see like, what is it? Khabib Nurmagomedov. He's been wrestling bears since he was a little kid.
Right.
Nobody's beaten him yet. So you think about somebody that's been doing something, you either get 10,000 hours or you get 150,000 reps. I had 150,000 reps long before I had 10,000 hours. I just kept going and going, and I just never stopped. So I attest that mentality from something that my mom instilled inside of me. So once somebody just pointed me in a direction, I knew where to go and I knew what I wanted. And I was not going to stop because I make my own money. And then I acquire a team and I know how to put teams and leaders together because that's what I want.
Right. And so as soon as you start finding other people that also have that button pushed, that thing that they're relentless in that pursuit and it's never out of scarcity. And once you can start linking up with people like that, it's exponential growth.
Yeah, it's energy amplifies energy when it's aligned. Like when it's aligned, it goes like this.
And
Or
that's why there's
like
such
this.
huge spikes when we have those, the weekend that you and I met was this Empowered Brotherhood Weekend that I was fortunate enough to get to sponsor and come be a part of. And, that showcases all of it. The same thing happens when I have my group here. It's just buzzing. There's a different feel in the air when you're around people that align with that drive and direction you want to go. And it's just a group all solving the same problems together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Man, it's been incredible to see that. And again, I love the work that you guys have done. That getting that instilled piece in you of never quitting. Yet you've got it pointed in a direction of, there's not exactly, I struggle with the term moral compass, but we'll use it because we both know what it means. Anyway, so at that point, like, you're going to do anything to obtain whatever it is for your goals. And there's not much of a concern at this point, whether that's legal or illegal or hurt someone else or causes inconvenience.
Well, that was back then.
Right.
So now I have more, because I was unaware of how to manage my energy. I was unaware of how to live in harmony with myself, because I was ultimately at war with myself. So anything that happened to me was a direct reflection of what I was doing to myself. So I didn't know how to live in harmony with myself. Now, harmony is a value of mine. 90% here, 10% here, or 20% here, 80% here, whether it's in my relationship or on this book or with MPB, or, I have a retreat coming up in June. I don't know when this is going to come out, but June 10th, and it's called Awaken the Artist Within. That is going to be literally my most powerful work ever, because I'm taking the nucleus of everything that I've done, because underneath everything that I've done, whether it's the book, speaking on stage, 50,000 people, my one-on-ones, my retreats, the Empowered Brotherhood, what I do when it comes to dance and singing and confidence and cultivating natural power that always reciprocates itself, because that's how nature flows. I know how to take people into the depths of themselves through these certain mediums, so that by the time I'm done with them, they are a much more embodied person in anything that they do, instead of overcompensating and then having crash and burns in all these other areas. So that 3-day retreat, the weekend of June 10th, is going to be my most powerful work. So I say that because this is how I'm choosing to show up.
For sure. And I got to see it firsthand, man. How much of your growing up, relationship with other men in your life?
I had none.
None. No positive role model.
No. All my role models would always get in trouble with the laws. It's so funny because I got in trouble with the law. My dad got in trouble with the law. My brother got in trouble with the law. My brother was an alcoholic. He did drugs. My dad was an alcoholic. He did drugs. And I chose to never do drugs or do alcoholic. Well, I do mushrooms from time to time, but it's
as a responsible adult should.
The government called that drugs. I'm like, yo, that's communicating with plants.
I'm hearing you with that. I'm 100% for it.
But I never had a positive role model, so I didn't know how to activate that aspect of me in a positive way. So that's where my ego, my pride, my excuses, dominating women frequently without any kind of like, go to the club, take one down, go to the club, take one down. But then there was this softer side of me that was musical and loved dance and loved music and just was spontaneous. It could manifest anything. And then people would see that out front facing. And then behind closed doors, they'd get this deep shadow side that I was even ashamed of. But I didn't know any other way to be. Here's funny. Until I moved to Austin.
Austin's a special place, man.
Until I moved to Austin.
I enjoy traveling and hanging out there for sure. I enjoy it there a lot, man. There's a really, really good vibe there. Austin has definitely, the weirdness of it has bled into my system and been integrated fully.
Yeah.
So, so as you're following in those footsteps of the people you're around at that point, getting in trouble and things like that, you're still finding success in other places, but still managing to get in trouble? It's just full energy.
Well, I was finding success in the trouble. So I've always been successful. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be transferred. And it's the one thing that's forever present.
Perhaps successful. Let's say you were always able to make money.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, those two things don't necessarily line up.
Yeah, even from when I was 7 selling lemonade. Yep. I met these 3 kids out on the corner yesterday, and I bought a glass of lemonade for $100. And I say, I support everything that you're doing. Keep going, because everything that I learned from this is what supports me in feeding my family and impacting the world right now.
Because the fact that you're out here and not inside on your phone already says something else about the spirit in that person.
Yeah. And it was 2 little girls, 1 little boy. They were like 9 and 7. And I was like, are you only taking cash? They're like, yeah. I was like, go run home and ask your dad, does he have Venmo? Sent the Venmo. He's like, man, wow, thank you. You really made a lasting impression on my kids. And that's what I wanted to do. So to tailor it to your question, that stage of my life of always knowing that I can create a way to make money was birthed from my mom not giving me anything. So nothing was handed. I learned how to work for everything. And when I know I work really hard for something, I can really appreciate it. So I've also learned how to really, over time, how to really appreciate what I've worked hard for. When I got into trouble, I didn't know any better because that was the lifestyle that I lived. And the only people that would hang out with weird people from Houston back in the 80s are the troublemakers or the headbangers. The headbangers are the guys who listen to like rock and stuff, hardcore rock. Wasn't my style, but they hung out with me. We were always in trouble together. So I did what they did naturally. The only thing I didn't do was the drugs.
So, I mean, clearly staying away from drugs definitely helped. If you'd have focused on that, I don't think it would have turned out as well.
I definitely wouldn't be alive.
And you've still got, I mean, this is all, late high school? Like, really making these pursuits? I know you and I connected because...
This was middle school.
This is middle school?
Oh, bro. I used to break into the Missouri City Recreation Center, steal the pixie sticks, blow pops, gum, and then sell it at school over the next 3 days to go buy some Jordans because my mom wouldn't dare spend $150 on a pair of shoes.
Hustling.
Literally 6 years old, 7 years old, doing lemonade. My mom used to make fun of me because I would go door to door and ask everybody, can I mow your lawn? If they say no, say, can I wash your car? They say no. Can I weed eat your grass? Because I got taught how to mow lawn, wash cars. Like I was selling candy. It was constant. It's like, I don't know what no is. I just know how to create another way.
Right. Yeah. I think that's such an important thing that a lot of people miss. I think about that lesson that no essentially just means not right now. I got that during my time doing outside sales reps and work doing that and going to meetings and hearing stuff when people don't want to see you, like, yeah, I get it. You know what I mean? Like I'm calling back. It doesn't matter that you said no. And having that like instilled as a kid as well, that like, no, you can't, was essentially fuel for you.
Oh, totally. No, you can't, because I felt like you didn't believe me. I'm going to show you.
Right. And I think there's a big difference between I'm going to show you and proving someone wrong. I think those are different intentions to go with. And a lot of people root for I'm going to show people wrong, and I don't see it as satisfying a ground or accomplishment.
In all fairness, it morphed into proving people wrong. It's not like that now.
Right.
Like, if you doubt me, I'm like, thank you, but I'm still going to do what I need to do.
Right.
It's not part of your dream anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
And so chasing that hustle, you've sold drugs, and I know that you told me a story, but you got arrested and spent 2 years in France, and that's not the low point of your story.
No,
right. Like that's why I'm amazed that the low point of your story came years after you figured out all these things when you were in prison. I guess you can explain how that works.
So yeah, and you did ask me about that earlier, so I'm glad you brought it back up. So growing up, I never got taught how to make money. Just whenever you can make money, you make your own money. So whatever. So that was the mentality I carried. I mean, till I was 20-something years old.
But just no fear of the law.
Huh?
Like no fear of the law at this
No
point.
fear of the law. I was in and out of juvenile. I did that little TV show called Scared Straight. But they don't make it anymore. But like they were supposed to, 20 years later, they're supposed to like do a story on the people. And I was like, oh my God, I changed my life. And I can't wait to redo Scared Straight. But I just kept going. And even when I was on probation, I still went to go break into more cars, break in the chief of police. Like I did a kick door on the chief of police's house. They had the dogs and everybody in Missouri City Police Department looking for me. I was in Alligator Island, which was a lake in Quail Valley. And I was having one of my pixie sticks that I stole from the rec center, emptied that, and I was breathing underwater through a pixie stick, hearing the dogs go by. Relentless. But all of that was just uncontrolled energy, but I was focused on one thing. I broke into 62 cars in one night. Somebody ended up snitching on me. I did 6.5 months of juvenile.
I don't know if you can say I broke into 62 cars and someone snitched. I feel like there's a lot of people that would have to be quiet. But
I didn't get caught.
Sure.
It was the guys that I was with. I went out with 11 guys that night.
Oh, man.
And I was the leader of the 11 guys. So I didn't even know I had influence back in the day. There's guys that made straight A's, all this stuff. All of a sudden, man, they turned into freaking drug dealers and doing all this crazy stuff. And I was like, dang, I didn't know what influence was. I just was the fearless one that would just go and do the thing. It's just like, well, then I'll go by myself. So I did all of that, learned a lot of things. I'd get cash, I get money, and I don't know, I'd steal their stereo and sell their stereo at the pawn shop, whatever was valuable in the car. That just kept going. My probation officer said, comes a point in life where you got a crossroads. Turn to left, you have a good life. Turn right, you have a bad life. Right now, you're heading right. And if you don't do anything to change your life, your future's not going to be good. And guess what? A week later, I broke into more cars. So that bro, fearless. So imagine a little kid, and I grow up in my 20s, still with the same mentality.
Right.
So how I went to prison, I met a guy in France who I knew from LA. He wasn't my friend, but I knew from LA at the club scene. Okay. I always want the big, nice cars and the nice house and that kind of lifestyle. I'm like, man, how do you get that? Seen him at a club in France. I had a girlfriend in France. And, there's some stuff I can't say because it would give some things away.
Sure.
Just because of who it's associated with. But basically, he had an opportunity for me. And I was to meet his partner in this garage. There was a BMW. They say, if you drive this car over the ferry, over into the Amsterdam, you'll get 4,000 pounds. And at that time, a UK pound was worth $2.3 US. So that's
a little over like $9,000. Yeah.
Almost $9,000. And I never had fast cash. I did that route, and within a 2-month time span, I kept flying back from the US, to do that. I did that route 7 times.
There's no concern you have about what this looks like on your passport, or ridiculous looking.
No, okay. Because I was a model.
You're right. We're fucked. And it's all right.
Normal.
So you have a backside story for all this.
Yeah, and it's normal for a model to travel that much.
Right.
So every time I went over the border, I just showed them the cover of a magazine that I was on. They're like, "Oh, okay, go ahead.
That'll do it."
And people said, "Why would you do all that? You're like on music videos." I was like, "Music videos don't pay a lot of money, and
none of that pays shit."
Yeah, and I was like, "Hey, you gotta wait like 2 months before you can get." I've never had fast cash before, so this was giving me almost $9,000 cash. Now, mind you, in 2 months, I did the route 7 times. So 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9 cash. Then the 8th time.
Yeah, that's a lot of money in your early 20s. It's all the money.
Yeah.
It's all the money in the world in your early 20s.
All the money.
Yeah. It's unspendable.
Yeah, bro. And then the 8th time, everything in all the blood that was coursing through my veins said, no, do not go to France. I felt it while I was on the plane. Everything just felt wrong. And I was like, man, this is a completely different route. Everything feels wrong. I'm going to France. I'm driving. Everything, the closer and closer I'm getting the bubble guts. It's like, no, stop. You know how the universe gets louder?
I mean, at that point, do you think just abandon the car?
No, because all I was thinking about was the money.
Fuck.
I didn't have the rationalization that I have now. It's whenever you can make your own money, you can do whatever you want.
Right.
Still, that program's still running. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
So I get to the border. It was like, we need to x-ray your car. It's the first time they ever stopped me in 7 times. So the 8th time they stopped me, they not x-ray the car. There was Congo drums in the back. I was like, I'm a musician. And then I was like, oh my God, this is my friend's car. What's your friend's name? D. I want to say his real name because of who it was associated with. All of a sudden, bro.
That's a lot of red flags, quick.
They went through the Congo drums. And I seen these little shadow of bricks in the drums. And I'm like, yo.
Oh.
All of a sudden, they axed open the Congo drums. They pulled out these little yellow bricks, one by one. Bro, I was supposed to be a VJ for an MTV, and I was reading for it. And I had all these things. I had billboards in Times Square. I had music videos out. I had L'Oreal hair commercial out. Boy, it was about to hit it big. And at the height of that, I get busted. Spend 5 days in a holding cell. They put me in prison. They sentenced me after a year to 12 years in prison. I get out in 2.5.
So, like, you're in prison awaiting trial for a year?
Yes, it's very different than America.
Whoa!
So I didn't get my first phone call till after a year.
So, family, anyone? I mean,
half the people thought I was dead. My mom was so embarrassed that her husband, her son was in jail that she didn't really tell anybody. He's out for work. And people like, it's not like Garrain. I was going by my middle name at the time, Stefan. It's not like Stefan to not just like call, like, where is he? My girlfriend at the time, like there was so many people that just was like, yo, I think he's dead. And the
Ghost.
first time anybody heard of me was after 1 year.
That's crazy, man.
And I had a newborn, bro.
Dude, so let me run you back real quick, because I can't. All I've thought about since you told me this story is that moment at the border, like when you know it's done. Like you're not talking your way in. There's no charisma that fixes this.
My life is done. That's the first thing I said. Wow.
Like
That's
no arguing with the cops. No.
That is the first time in my life that I thought about what could happen, circumstances, because I just kept going. Money focused. No vision, no mission, no values. Money focus was at the helm of everything that I did. So it blinded me from everything else. So soon as that happened, my life is over. Oh my God, what have I done? How did I get myself into this? And then reality started to set in. I'm like, man, I got billboards, I got magazines, I'm reading from movies. It's on the rise.
She didn't have the patience.
And just like that.
Fuck, man. That's that moment of, so that was that. That's the ride. We figured out where it goes. And then, like, as you transition from that lifestyle to now being in prison, like, how long before you start, I guess, becoming whoever you're going to become?
1.5 years in.
What's that first 1.5 years like?
Have you ever wanted to get somewhere so bad, but there's like 2 hours left, and then you stare at the clock and it seems like it's 10 hours?
Yep.
Imagine staring at the clock for 1.5 years.
That's all you did for the first 1.5 years.
And
just wait.
I sulked. I waited. I barely came out of my cell. You know how they have the yard in America? They call it promenade in France. I never came out, and I was just sulking, and I'm just sulking, and I'm sulking, and I'm just like, oh, I'm never gonna get out. My life is over. I'm a F up. I messed up. It's all my fault. Like my mom, my daughter, like what's gonna happen? 12 years from now? What? For a whole 1.5 years, bro.
Oof. And then
so here's what happened.
Right. So where does that snap take place?
So every month we're allowed to watch a movie. And then they play this movie called Shawshank Redemption.
I'm very familiar.
And which is a movie that's based out of prison. So it like hit home a lot. And the crazy thing is, I knew I was in there for something bad. I never knew what the drugs were. I got busted for 6.2 kilos of heroin. That would have been on my conscience. I would have never done it.
Sure. But do you think at that point that you're not asking those questions for a reason?
Well, the thing about it is, don't ask. I can easily say I don't know what it is, and it actually be true.
It's true. No, for sure.
So when I found out what it was, and then I found out who it was connected to, not even the person that I was working for. I'm talking about the boss of the boss of the boss that had something to do with the mafia.
Oh.
Yeah, it got real deep. And I was like, wait, hold on. I don't know nothing. I didn't even know this car was stolen.
I ain't saying shit.
It got like really weird, really quick. And I knew I wasn't going to snitch because one of the main guys, I know him and he knows my kids.
Yeah, it's fair. I got you.
So I was just like, nah.
No, look, man, kid.
I'll take it. I'll take one for the team. So I became a member of the American connection. They put me all on newspapers and everything. So it was like to the prison, they thought I was a really dangerous man. And trust me, I played the part.
I bet.
Trust me, because I'm
no,
what
it's survival, man.
I'm what they most people in the European gangsters want to be like. Because everybody pattern their gangsters most of the time off of what America is doing. And if you're a Black American and you got tattoos and you lived in New York, in their mind, that's like a dangerous person. Because at the time when 50 Cent was so scary and the game was so scary, it was during that time. So they associated me with some of the most dangerous people in New York, and I played the part. So I had the most dangerous people in that prison wanting to be my friend, so they could say I'm a friend with like the only American in the prison.
Oh man.
So I was like, I don't know what I did to get so lucky to be in a prison where I'm treated like a freaking god by the most gangster people inside of the prison. So here I am. And then I watch this movie, and then he says, they can take anything they want away from me, but they can't take away my mind. And in that moment, I became a free man. I was like, oh my God, that's why I'm in here. Because while I was free, I used to say, I feel like I'm in prison inside of my own body. I feel like I'm so far away from where I'm supposed to be, to the point where I manifested being so far away from where I was supposed to be in prison. And I said, if I can think myself to prison, well, then I can think my way out.
Also, what's the risk at this point?
Yeah. So I said, in that case, I'm a free man. And I literally start to claim it. Whatever you acknowledge exists. So I'm free, I'm free. And then I asked myself, what can I do in here that I wouldn't normally do out there? I stopped using my right hand. And then I start using my non-dominant hand, which I didn't even know was exercising a different part of my brain. And when I did that, I started getting more creative. I started learning fluent French. I started learning Braille, everything that I could learn. I've read the Bible cover to cover, the Quran cover to cover, all these spiritual self-help books and everything. And then I remembered that I loved to draw. So I started drawing paintings, portraits of inmates' families. They were like, can I get you anything? I'm like, no. In my heart, I say, I just want you to be happy. I started singing because I love to sing. And then the inmate says, man, every time you sing, it makes me feel free. So I just sang every night because I was already free, doing what free people do, what they love to do. So I started doing that, make them feel free. Then a little voice inside says, Garrain, run. You love to run. So this is the yard where I never used to go out. There was fights, stabbings, drug deals, people lifting weights and doing stuff out there. It's an hour in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. Bro, one day I started to run, and nobody's running at that time. One day I started to run.
You've never seen anyone run.
Look at that crazy American. Because I would run for the whole hour, and then the whole 2 hours, I just run the whole time. 30 days, I had 60 inmates running with me. I didn't know that that was influence. And then while I was running and drawing and singing, I was spreading a lot of joy. And to the point where the chief officer brought me in the office, he said, man, ever since you've been like drawing and singing and running, he's like, there's been less fights, less stabbings, less drug deals. He said, keep going. And I just kept going. And then one day, when I felt free, there's a difference between saying you're free and fighting for freedom. There's people that fight for freedom don't even know that they're in prison inside of their own body. I know what that's like because that's what I had to break out of that jail cell. You don't need to fight for freedom. When you have the power to possess your own mind and then you choose peace, there's your seed of freedom right there. And I didn't know that. So what happened was I felt and embodied all the characteristics of of freedom while being in prison on lockdown. Funny, that word is still around now. So while being on lockdown, I felt more free than I had ever felt in my life, to my remembering. So out of nowhere, they said, Jones, come to the office. Come to the office. And they said, we retested the drugs. Instantly. I said, why'd they retest the drugs? They had already tested the drugs 3 times when I first got in there. 6.2 kilos of heroin every time. Now I felt free. So it's a different person approaching life. We retested the drugs. 90% was fake. And for the amount that was real, you've already done the time. You're free to go home.
And you still don't know why this got retested.
Metaphysically, I do.
Sure.
On the surface level, I have no idea.
You don't know if there was another case that went through and a new thing got put in place to say, we're going to try people for the actual amount of narcotic in the thing first.
I have no idea. But one thing I do, I'm a fan of pregnancy, and I love women, and I love birth. It's so magical. It doesn't get the credit that it deserves. When the baby, there's a seed, a woman gets impregnated, there's a seed inside of the womb, and then it starts to grow. If the environment is favorable, it increases your chance of a healthy birth. But first, the baby's got to grow. And what once grew on the inside, then there's contractions and things like that, is now produced on the outside called birth. So the metaphysical for me is prison was a womb. Adding value and learning how to love myself free, myself. Nobody can give me what I can give myself. Love myself free, add value to myself, do the things that I used to love that made me the absolute happiest and brought joy to myself, spilled over my container into the other inmates to the point where they were singing and they were running and they were doing all this stuff. It was the spreading of joy. Well, the energy becomes a body almost. And when that body gets too big for the container, what was once produced on the inside, couple of contractions, it's produced on the outside called freedom.
I like that a lot. I like that you're birthed in that window of trial. You know, that womb, you know. So you get out of prison now. This is year
2005.
So 2005. And so even having that realization, or have you had the awareness yet of that's what you're doing?
That's what I do now all the time. That's how I've manifested all this stuff.
No, sure. But while you're in prison, right? Like you didn't come out of prison and go straight fucking into.
No, I had no idea. You can't see the picture while you're in the frame. So all I know is I was so charged up. You know, like when you have momentum, say for instance, you work out every day, your results are good and your diet is good for a whole year. And then you cheat for 2 weeks. It doesn't get that bad.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I do it all the time.
So momentum.
Right.
I had so much momentum that I thought everything that I did was good, even while I was still doing bad things or quote unquote bad things. So I get out, but while I was in prison, I wrote all these songs. I said, when I get out, I'm going to find a producer. They're going to produce this music that I taught myself how to write. I had all these dreams, had all these ideas. One of my dreams was to be on a show called Locked Up Abroad and to be on Oprah. And so I just and I still have the dream book now. I would just wake up and I was like, man, I just dreamt that I was on Locked Up Abroad. I dreamt that I was on Oprah. So I do all this, and my brother said to me, he goes, you want to sing, right? And I was like, yeah. He was like, don't come home unless you have a song. You got a free place to stay. You got all this stuff. I'll drive you anywhere. I'll buy you clothes. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? I don't know. You want to sing? He's like, yeah. I said, yeah. He said, don't come home unless you have a song.
A recorded song, not like written in a notebook.
Recorded song. What do you think that activated in me?
Ooh, we got to get it. Well, I mean, but like one of those things you keep talking about and I love, and I'm sure you're familiar with, was it Alex Banya? I'm not great with names. Alex Banya's Third Door, the book or the concept of the third door and how people find that. And I mean, this is, you're absolute living proof of that, of whatever that got instilled at you at the early age of like, oh, I'm getting there. I'll just continually solve the problem. I'm willing to continually figure it out.
So that, I didn't know him saying, don't come home till you have a song, became another reflection of my mom. It's just my mom in a different variation.
Sure. Same. Yeah, it's the same story.
And the same thing that I did, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I went on MySpace for the very first time. I put on a shirt with my abs, and I told everybody I was a singer and I'm looking for a producer. Guy named John Henry brought me into the studio. I recorded a song. I put that song on MySpace. And then all of a sudden I hit up like this was before spam. I hit up like 900 producers, people that were doing music. 30 days, I had 28 songs.
Incredible.
And guess what? My brother was the host of the Improv. Instead of putting up a comedian, he put me up. Ludacris just happened to be in the house. So after that, he was like, yo, that's your brother? He was like, yep. He came up to me. He was like, I like your style. He was like, you got any music? I said, actually, I got 28 songs. 3 weeks later, I had a $500,000 record deal with DTP Def Jam, to which I was on MTV, BET. I was writing in the studio with Chingy. I have a couple songs on his Hate It or Love It album. I was in the studio with 2 Chainz. I was in the studio, all these people. So all of this happened, and I didn't know how to sustain it and keep it going.
Of course not. How the hell could you?
That was part of the momentum thing. And then if you don't have a system for sustainability, that thing will drop just as fast as it rose. So my ego creeped up. Yeah, go ahead.
So something you said in there, have you watched any of the Kanye documentary on Netflix?
Not yet, but I need to watch that because I've heard a lot.
It's fantastic. And there's a couple moments that like I've seen, and it's always repetitive in stories like this. And it's not, it's not that you're just sitting in jail for the tool times that you're there, you did start writing songs. You did start preparing this dream.
Well, I was on it.
If I got out, like I'm fucking running. And so you got out, and then you hear something, with Kanye West, it was something like, hey man, or Kid Cudi's documentary, like, we need you in Hawaii this weekend. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, figure it out. And like, yo, that's moments that make or break.
Yeah.
And so it's not just that you chose to write those songs, that you chose to invest in yourself, but the fact that when the opportunity got handed over to you of like, hey man, do your thing and show people that magic, you'd already put in the reps in prison of performing in front of people and doing all this. And like, if you can talk to a scary room, the improv ain't a scary room anymore. If you're singing in prison. And so like the reps that come there of like not only having yourself ready for that opportunity, but fucking crushing it.
Yeah.
The chance you get.
Absolutely.
And like being prepared for that, I fucking love it.
Yeah. I'm really glad that I got a lot of reps of rejection when I was doing modeling. When I did fashion modeling and commercial auditions, I got rejected 90% of the time. So I got out all of I'm not worthy, I'm not this. And I was just like, man, you know what? I'm going to just start focusing on the yeses. And I'm just going to keep going until I get a yes. And I keep going. But it activated still that little kid that was relentless. So by me messaging all those people, 30 days, I had 28, it was, I just kept going. And it just as fast as it rose, I wasn't doing personal development. I didn't know that the stuff that I was doing in prison is what created the launching pad to do all of this stuff. I was just like, oh man, I'm good. And yeah, I can sing and all these girls like me, and cockiness wrote in, my pride, my ego, my excuses, all of that. Boom, set me right back on my butt. And this
so just
time,
a lack of integration.
This time, there was a lot of shame. I didn't want to admit to people that I got dropped from Def Jam, but I quit DTP and I got dropped from Def Jam. And I didn't want to admit to people that. And I was just like, I don't know what to do. Well, you know what? All I have is my car from my record deal. They can't take that away from me. So I'm just going to live in my car because I wasn't making any money. The songs that I wrote didn't come till like 3-4 years later.
Right. Nobody understands the actual mechanics of.
No, I'm still getting like $15,000, $20,000 checks from songs that I wrote back in 2009.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah.
Thanks, 2009 me.
Yeah. So I went through all of that, and I was like, I don't know how I can get back. That time I wasn't reading, and then I was just like, man, let me start reading this book again. Maybe this might work. I read this book in prison. It was called The Power of Positive Thinking by Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. I was like, let me start reading the book again. And it talks about forgiveness and letting go of resentment, being a kind person, thinking positive thoughts, meditating, praying every day, and just aligning yourself with the kind of person that is like open and available for abundance to come in. I didn't know that. So I read the book again. And while reading that book, because I was still on this path of living in my car, I left my brother's house and I couldn't go back home because if I went back home to Houston, that was the ultimate failure. I'm like, I'm never coming back home. I went home to make something of myself. So I set off on this path. Then all of a sudden I started living in my car. 1 week turned to 2 weeks. Slept from couch to couch to girl's house to the point where I didn't even like sex anymore. I'm like, yo, I'm tired. I just want to sleep.
I just would like to be by myself in a comfortable place.
Yo, I just want to sleep. Like, go to your room. Like, I want to sleep. That. So I was like, you know what? I just go to my car. That turned into 4 weeks, a month, a year. And then I became numb with emotions. Had lost a relationship with my daughter, mom dying in the hospital, over $250,000 in debt because I hadn't paid taxes for the last 10 years, but they can't get to for the past 7. And then it sends me right back to that moment in August 2011. But so funny, I was reading that book, The Power of Positive Thinking. And then something happened. Then I said a prayer, did a release moment. Then all of a sudden I went to a free health and wellness personal development seminar, and everything the dude spoke from stage. I was like, oh my God, that's why it went up and down, because I stopped growing. Leaders or readers. I started hearing all these. I was like, oh my God, that's why. I would read, I would do these things, all this stuff would happen, and then I would stop, and all these things would go down. I'm like, it's matching my level of personal growth and how I see myself, not how people see me, how I see myself. And that's when the world, the capacity, everything opened up. And I have not looked back.
Now, that complete fearless nature of you to go forward that you've had, has that been something that you found still as fearless looking in?
Absolutely. Like they're like, okay, we're going to do this 5 days in the dark, or we're going to do 10 days silent retreat. I'll do it. I'll do it. It's the same, adults are deteriorated children. So if you're going to have something that works against you, find an outlet that works for you and transfer that energy.
Yeah, like what I've done with ADD. It's the same thing. It's like what I've done with ADD.
Absolutely.
You actually figure out how to use that superpower that I can super focus on a thing. I can't focus on a thing I don't give a shit about.
Right.
And so if I can't focus, get the fuck rid of it and let's move on to something that we want.
Yes.
I love all of that, man. There's so much here. And it's not like I know you know that. But the awareness and accountability that starts coming in now at this point where you start looking at the personal growth, like that's the big shift that starts kind of unraveling the puzzle, or it did for me.
For sure. My community, mentors, books, stopped listening to music, and I turned my car into a university on wheels. You're in my car, you're learning something. So there's podcasts, there's audiobook. It's because that's how you get the edge. Like, if you're trying to do the greatest war you'll ever fight is the war of the mind. And the war of the mind has so much momentum. Because can you imagine, you've been speaking English your whole life? Yeah?
Yes.
Stop speaking English.
Man, I honestly think about that a lot, of losing the ability to communicate. It's got to be such a frustrating thing when
Yeah. So imagine if I say, stop speaking English, here's a book on Japanese. Like you can't, because the momentum of your learning pattern has been going. It's like the locomotive train going 1,000 miles an hour. And even as strong as Superman is, he doesn't stop it on contact. It goes like this. It moves him all the way back. So he has to apply 10 times the velocity just to get it back to that state of homeostasis so that he can move it back that way. Changing your life is the exact same way. So I've read 10 times the books, 10 times the learning, 10 times the personal growth. People are like, 30 minutes a day. I'm like, man, to encapsulate 30 years, how about I stop watching TV? Right. How about I stop reading books? I mean, how about I stop doing things that doesn't move me forward in life? And then with the same time, this is what this whole time thing. I didn't run out of time. What I did is I didn't know how to manage myself in the time that I had. So what I did was take the same time and say, hey, normally I scroll for 3 hours total out of the day, or I'm watching TV every day, or I'm going to watch movies, and I'm doing all this. All of this equates to a specific amount of time throughout the year. What if that was traded with reading books and learning?
Or admit you don't give a shit.
One of those.
It's one of those two. And if you admit you don't give a shit about it, be cool with where you're at.
Yeah.
Because it ain't changing. Man, if there's people out there that shoe fits, right on.
Yeah.
That are just happy and blissful and whatever it is, I'm all for you. But the people on the hunt, that I think it's really hard. And you hit on it, that there wasn't anyone in your environment growing up showing you other paths.
And they did the best. Yeah, go ahead.
And they did the best they could. I feel the same way about my dad, right? I think a lot about my father, and I think that his 6 best friends are 6 other guys from the hometown that he's from that work very similar jobs. He doesn't have the resources that I've been fortunate enough to build now as an adult, that I have, I believe, manifested as well by showing up to things and finding interest and going and being part of and providing value to friends and doing all that I've been able to do. But my dad didn't have a smart, successful mentor that was like, have you thought about psychedelics? Anyone who would have ever mentioned something like that to him would have never had their shit together enough for him to listen.
Yeah.
And having those mentors has been critical. And you don't realize that the people around you are your mentors, whether you want to call them that or not.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I know, and I want to just quickly bring up on it, but you and I apparently were really close to being teammates at LSU on the track team, as
Well,
we figured
you were
out.
there, and I was like accepted, but not really there. So
Right, yeah, you got in trouble, but look, some left to some zigs instead of zags. We're teammates, at least for a little bit.
Yeah.
At least could have happened in the universe. Timelines would have connected at some point.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But man, Garrain, I can't thank you enough, and I love seeing what you're doing. If you want to talk about Empowered and what you guys have going on, any of those type of things, I know I got to share in it, and I've talked about it a little bit on the podcast, but please let people know.
Yeah. So, it was interesting because last year when I moved here, I didn't really have men friends. And then my boy Preston Smiles, he had moved here from LA, but we never really hung out in LA. I just respected him. And then he invited me over to a guy named Stefanos's garage to go and work out. And then there were like 5 guys there that I didn't really know. And I was just still kind of like, who is this, trying to figure guys out, learning aspects of myself. And we just kept inviting people. And then we outgrew his garage. Then we went to my buddy Cal Callahan's, great friend of mine. And we got up to like 50 guys, and he went out of town for like 3 months. Then we went and partnered with On It. They said we can have 60 guys, 120 guys showed up. Then we were just like, man, let's go to the park. Went to the park, 200 something guys showed up. It was like, man, there's something really special here. And I noticed that the more and more I was spending time with the healthy masculine men, the embodied masculine men, my relationship was changing with my wife because they were meeting certain needs that I was trying to make her meet, just certain getting aggressions out and certain shares and being authentic and vulnerable and in a certain way, which is part of my tribal nature. I was trying to do that with my wife, and then I would always blow up, and I'm like, man, it was crazy. My relationships were changing. And then one day Preston came to me, he was like, man, you think we should take this and create something bigger, something for like humanity? I was like, I don't do men's work, but I do human work, so I'm in. But like, why do you want me to be a part of it? He was like, man, I've seen you lead large groups of people, inspire large groups of people, 300, 400 people in a park, in something you've created. We need that. And I'm like, okay, I understand. So I was in the process of teaching what I needed in my life, which was healthy masculine men, that was grooming a part of me where I brought the dancing and the flowing and the color and the drums and the music and the singing effortlessly, which most men have not accepted within themselves. It's difficult for them to do that. It's not difficult.
Most men don't enjoy being silly.
Yes. So I found my place. I found my role. I found my tribe. My tribe found me, and we go together like glue. And so now we formed just a corporation called Empowered Brotherhood. It's, if you go to capital M, poweredbrotherhood.com, and then you look us up. We do retreats. That's where I met you, the 48-hour reset. Now we have one coming up at the end of May, which is going to be out of this world, with a Sergeant General named Johnny Lassiter, and myself, Preston and Stefanos. It's called Activate Your Alpha. So you can look that up on our website, and we're about to launch our global platform. So there's a lot of beautiful things that we're doing in the face of man to get him to remember himself in a way that feels good inside of his own body, because there's a lot of negative things going on in the world at the hands of unhealthy men.
Man, I'm always
down inside don't love themselves.
No doubt about it. And even just creating a space for men to feel comfortable to do those things is very interesting to watch people turn on.
Safe space.
Or yeah. Man, I don't know why I have such a weird to the term alpha, but for whatever reason, it's always hit me in a weird spot. And I love watching those events and seeing people actually get that confidence in the warrior spirit of themselves, because I mean, so much of that has to be tested in a harsh environment. Like, it doesn't work in just having the theory of it. Like, being weak and feeble and also being passive isn't exactly control.
Right.
Knowing that you can fuck shit up and being nice to everyone is a much better tool. Very
much so. I like that category.
Same. I try to operate there as well. Man, is there anything else you want to touch on, dude? I can't say thanks enough. I'm actually going to be in Austin the 24th and 25th. I got to swing down. I got a dinner with a friend. I'll shoot you a text. Let's see if we can figure out something.
Well, definitely. We just built a basketball court in the backyard. So got a big resort style swim pool back there. So it's like, come have fun.
Yeah, dude, I'll hit you up. We get in town on the 24th. I'll see what you got going on.
Okay, cool.
Dude, I can't thank you enough.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm excited to spend more time. It's always nice getting to meet other rad lunatics.
Yeah, bro. Let's go.
Yeah, anything else?
I would say the last thing is I really meant it when I was talking about my retreat, my Awaken the Artist Within, the weekend of June 10th. That's going to be a very, 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 very special one and some of my greatest work in getting people to truly infuse both masculine and feminine energy to experience what truly being an embodied person feels like, and how you can generate unlimited power and point that energy anywhere. Unlimited creativity, all of that. Become an excellent speaker, singer, dancer, drummer. But not even if you want to, it's almost, I have the confidence to know that if I want to, I can pull it out at any given moment. That's what that's about. Awaken the Artist Within. So I would highly suggest you check that out.
When is the dates on that one?
The weekend of June 10th.
Okay. I will definitely put all that in the show notes as well. I know June 10th. I'm bummed. I actually just looked at my calendar too, and I'm filming a motorcycle show with Indian Motorcycles in the Pacific Northwest. So I'm not complaining, but another in the same feeling of what I'm hearing you say about this challenge of you creating this Awaken the Artist Within. This is the accumulation of all the things that are you. I understand what you feel like, making sure that you're properly translating it.
Yeah.
To everyone who shows up. So I have a ton of respect for the amount of energy and editing your own thing that takes to do well.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you so
much. Dude, it's fucking hard work.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge, and that's why it's so impactful.
Absolutely.
So again, brother, I can't thank you enough, and I'll text you when we hit Austin.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and I'll speak to you
soon.
Thank
you, man. All right, appreciate you, brother. Thank you.